The chains around Seraphine's neck clinked with each labored breath as she stood in the bustling marketplace of Drakmor. Her emerald scales, once lustrous and proud, had dulled from months of captivity and shame. Dragon merchants barked prices around her like she was livestock, their voices cutting through her dignity with practiced cruelty. "Baron she-dragon, no eggs in 20 seasons," shouted Merchant Corvin, his gold teeth gleaming as he gestured dismissively at her magnificent form. What good is a dragon who cannot breed? Perfect for hard labor, though look at those muscles. Seraphina kept her golden eyes downcast, wings folded tight against her body. In dragon society, fertility was everything. A female who couldn't produce eggs was considered cursed, worthless. Her own clan had cast her out after the 20th failed mating season, selling her to traders who saw only muscle and flame for their enterprises. The crowd gathered miners seeking beasts of burden, arena, masters wanting spectacle, and wealthy lords desiring exotic pets. Each potential buyer examined her like a broken tool, poking at her scales, testing her flame production, calculating her worth in gold rather than recognizing her soul. "She's got spirit left in her," observed a scarred gladiator trainer, circling. "Her bound form could make for good entertainment before she breaks completely." As the bidding began, Seraphina closed her eyes and remembered soaring through mountain passes, the wind beneath her wings carrying her toward sunsets that painted the sky in colors that matched her scales. Those days felt like dreams now, memories from another dragon's life. The voices grew louder, more aggressive. Hands grabbed at her wings, inspecting for damage. She was merchandise now, nothing more. But somewhere deep within her chest, beneath, layers of shame and despair, a tiny ember of her true self still glowed, waiting for the right moment to ignite once more. Asterisk, "I'll take her." The quiet voice cut through the merchant's haggling like a gentle blade. Seraphina raised her head to see a weathered human man stepping forward from the crowd's edge. Unlike the others, he wasn't examining her body for flaws or calculating profit margins. Instead, his kind brown eyes met hers with something she hadn't seen in months' respect. Thomas Hartwell was a simple farmer, his clothes dusty from morning chores, his hands calloused from honest work. He looked entirely out of place among the wealthy bidders and hardened traders surrounding them. "She's not for farming, you fool." Corvin laughed, his voice dripping with condescension. "This beast needs specialized handling. She's dangerous." "Every creature deserves dignity," Thomas replied calmly, counting out coins from a worn leather pouch. His life savings, Seraphina realized with shock. This stranger was spending everything he had on her. The other bidders scoffed and dispersed, muttering about waste and foolishness. As Thomas approached with the key to her chains, Seraphina tensed. Was this just another form of ownership? Another master who would work her until she collapsed? But when the shackles fell away, Thomas stepped back and bowed deeply, the traditional greeting offered to free dragons by respectful humans. "My name is Thomas Hartwell. If you choose to come with me, it will be as my guest, not my property." Seraphina stared at him in disbelief. When had anyone last offered her a choice? Her voice, unused for weeks except to roar in defiance, came out as barely a whisper. "Why? Because everyone deserves a second chance at happiness," he said simply. "My farm is small but peaceful. You could rest there, heal, and decide your own future." For the first time in months, Seraphina felt something other than despair. This human saw her not as a failed breeding stock or a beast of burden, but as a person worthy of compassion. Perhaps there was still hope in this world, after all. Thomas's farm nestled in a valley between rolling hills, far from the judgment of cities and the cruelty of markets. As they walked up the dirt path together, Seraphina marveled at the simple beauty surrounding her wildflowers dotting the meadows. apple trees heavy with fruit, and a clear stream singing its way toward distant mountains. "It's not much," Thomas sighed, gesturing toward his modest stone cottage and small barn. "But it's peaceful. You can make yourself comfortable anywhere you like." That first night, Serafina curled up in the barn, unused to such freedom. She expected Thomas to chain her or set guards, but he simply brought her fresh water and wished her good dreams. The kindness felt foreign, almost suspicious. Days passed in quiet routine. Thomas tended his crops and animals while Serafina explored the property, rediscovering simple pleasures she'd forgotten. The feeling of morning dew on her scales, the taste of apples picked fresh from branches, the joy of stretching her wings without fear of punishment. She began helping without being asked. Her flame breath proved perfect for clearing stubborn weeds. Her strength made quick work of fallen trees, and her keen eyesight spotted problems in the fields that Thomas's aging eyes missed. But unlike her previous captors, Thomas thanked her for each contribution and never demanded more than she freely offered. "You don't have to work," he told her one evening as they watched the sunset paint the sky. "You're not here to earn your keep." "But I want to help," Serafina replied, surprised by her own honesty. "It feels good to be useful for creation rather than destruction." One morning, she discovered Thomas struggling with a broken wagon wheel, his face tight with worry. Without hesitation, she stepped forward and lifted the entire wagon while he made repairs. When he tried to thank her, she simply said, "Partners help each other." The word surprised them both. Somewhere between the shared meals and quiet conversations, between his patient acceptance and her growing trust, they had become partners. Not master and servant, not owner and property, but two souls choosing to walk the same path together. Their peaceful existence shattered on a cold autumn morning when riders thundered up the valley path. Serafina recognized the banners immediately lowered. Blackthorn's men, known throughout the region for their cruelty and their master's obsession with exotic creatures. Her blood turned to ice as she saw the chains and nets they carried. "Thomas Hartwell." The captain's voice boomed across the farm. "By order of Lord Blackthorn, you will surrender the dragon immediately. His lordship has need of her services." Thomas stepped protectively in front of Serafina, his jaw set with quiet determination. "She's not property to be surrendered. She's free to make her own choices." The soldiers laughed, hands moving to their weapons. "Dragons aren't citizens, farmer. They're beasts. Now step aside before we add obstruction of nobility to your crimes." Serafina felt the familiar weight of helplessness settling over her. How many times had she been traded, sold, passed from one master to another like a piece of furniture? But then she looked at Thomas, this brave, foolish human who stood between her and 20 armed soldiers without a weapon of his own. Something ignited within her chest, not the cold flame of rage she'd known in captivity, but the warm fire of purpose. This man had given her dignity when she'd forgotten what it felt like. He'd offered her choice when she'd believed she had none. Now it was her turn to choose. She stepped forward, her full height towering over the mounted soldiers. Her wings spread wide, blocking out the sun, and when she spoke, her voice carried the authority of ancient dragon lineages. "I am Serafina of the Western Peaks, daughter of storm clouds and mountain winds. This man is under my protection. Leave now, or face the consequences of threatening my chosen family." The horses reared as her golden eyes blazed with power. Some soldiers reached for their weapons, but their captain wiser than his men recognized the look of a dragon defending her kin. This wasn't a broken creature to be chained and sold. This was a guardian, and they had awakened something far more dangerous than they'd expected. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The soldiers retreated, but Serafina knew they would return with reinforcements. That evening, As she and Thomas discussed their options, unexpected visitors arrived at the farm. First came Elena, the village healer, carrying her herb bag and wearing a determined expression. "Thomas helped deliver my grandson when the midwife was away," she announced, setting down her supplies. "Dragons who protect such good men deserve protection in return." Soon others followed Marcus the blacksmith with his hammer and forge-hardened strength, old Willem with his crossbow and knowledge of tactics, Sarah the baker with food supplies and fierce maternal instincts, and even young Timothy, barely 16, but clutching his father's sword with trembling hands. "You don't understand," Thomas protested as more villagers arrived. "Lord Blackthorn has an army. You could be killed, or worse." "Aye," Marcus grinned, his massive arms crossed over his chest. "But some things are worth fighting for. Freedoms, one of them. Friendship's another." Serafina watched in amazement as these humans, people she barely knew, prepared to risk everything to defend her right to choose her own destiny. In dragon society, strength determined worth, and the weak were abandoned. But these humans saw strength differently. They found it in community, in standing together, in protecting those they cared about regardless of species or clan. When Lord Blackthorn's forces returned 3 days later, they found not a simple farm, but a fortress of determined hearts. The battle was brief but decisive. Seraphine's flame and fury, combined with the villagers' tactics and Thomas's unwavering courage, sent the would-be slavers fleeing back to their lord with tales of a dragon who fought not as a captive beast, but as a protector of family. In the quiet aftermath, as they tended wounds and celebrated victory, Serafina finally understood what she'd been searching for all her life. She'd thought her worth lay in producing eggs, in continuing the dragon bloodline. But her true purpose was here, in this valley, protecting and nurturing a different kind of family, one built not on blood or species, but on choice, kindness, and love. "Thank you," she whispered to Thomas as they watched the sunset paint the mountains gold. "For what?" he asked. "For showing me that family isn't about what you can give birth to," she replied, her great wing gently encompassing the small group of humans who had become her clan. "It's about what you choose to protect." The childless dragon had finally found her children, and they were more precious than any clutch of eggs could ever be. Asterisk.